Hello guys, and welcome back to Cooking History, where we explore the fascinating history behind the foods you love. On today's menu, we have every frostbitten person's wet dream, the gyoza. Now, we will get into the history later, but for now, let's focus on the main ingredient of this recipe, which is the wrapper. These are widely available in any Asian market, but if you can't find any, here's how to make your own. We are simply mixing 250 grams or 2 cups of flour with 130 milliliter or half a cup of water. And if you want to add a boost of flavor, adding 1 or 2 tablespoons of sesame oil will do the trick. Whisk everything together with the help of a spatula until the dough is born, after which you want to get it on a working surface and start kneading for about 5 minutes, or until the dough comes together and no wet spots are left. Then we want to plop it into a bowl and cover with a plastic wrap, allowing it to rest for 1 hour at room temperature, giving us just enough time to make our filling. Starting with 140 grams or 5 ounces of Chinese cabbage. Any other type of cabbage will do the trick, but for this one in particular, we want to boil it first for 5 minutes as these are quite thick. After which we are cutting our cabbage in thin slices, making sure to squeeze out any excess water and set aside. Next, we want to cut about 2 shiitake mushrooms into small chunks. If you can't find any, around 4 regular mushrooms will be fine as well. Let's set them aside and prepare our last veggie, which will be 2 scallions. We want to discard the roots and finally slice the whites together with the greens. I know my measurements are not matching the footage, but I'm doubling mine, because half of the filling will be used for another recipe. If you just follow the measurements, I promise you will have the perfect ratio of filling to wrapper. If not, I grant permission to sue me. Nextly, let's decide on the protein source for our filling. We will need about 340 grams or 3/4 of a cup of ground chicken, to which we will add our chopped veggies. In no particular order, we want to add our cabbage, mushrooms, scallions, along with 1 clove of crushed garlic, freshly grated ginger, a heaping tablespoon of MSG or salt, a tablespoon of black pepper, and lastly, a tablespoon of sesame oil. Next, we want to take out our surgeon gloves because we are about to operate on this filling. Really get in there and mix until everything is incorporated. This is already smelling amazing. And there we have it, our filling, which we then will cover up with a plastic wrap and let the flavors get to know each other in the fridge for at least 1 hour. More than enough time to prepare our wrappers. This is already looking pretty soft and smooth, but we can get it even smoother by kneading for an additional 5 minutes. Traditionally, these are hand rolled one by one, but if you're like me and can't roll out perfect circles each time, I have the right cheat for you. Firstly, we want to roll out the dough completely until it becomes translucent. We can easily check this by lifting the dough, and if we can see our hands through the dough, we have the desired thinness. After which we want to stamp out 3-inch circles with the help of a cup, although a biscuit cutter would have been easier for this, so use that if you have any. With our wrappers stamped out, we want to lightly dust them with cornstarch in order to stack them on each other. This recipe will produce around 35 wrappers, which we can then use to start filling with our chicken mixture. We want to place about 1 teaspoon of our mixture in the middle of each wrapper. Wet the sides of the wrapper with water using our finger and seal it shut with a series of pleats. My very first attempt was successful, so I thought this was easier than it seemed. Only to butcher the 3 next dumplings after that, but don't despair, after a while you will get the hang of it. Let's watch that again and see it from another angle. Close and press the wrapper shut at the center, after which we want to fold the outer parts towards the center, creating aesthetic pleats. Once we have done this for both sides, we want to gently squeeze the seam to seal it completely. Repeat this process for the remainder of the filling and place them onto a plate. These can now go straight to the freezing cold to store for up to a month, or straight to the pan in order to cook them. But before we do that, let's take a quick break and go back in time to explore the interesting connection between frostbitten ears and gyozas. The winter of 167 AD was a very harsh one, with temperatures below zero for extended periods of time. The people from China were struggling to stay warm and healthy during this harsh climate, and many of them were suffering from frostbitten ears, toes, and fingers. Among them was a young man named Zhang Zongjing, who dedicated his life to traditional Chinese medicine. As the winter wears on, Zhang becomes increasingly concerned about the plight of his citizens. He spends long hours poring over ancient texts in order to find a solution to their woes. And finally, one day, he has a breakthrough. He discovers a recipe for a dumpling filled with warm and nourishing ingredients like whole peppercorns, ground ginger, licorice root, and jujube fruit, which he believes will help restore the blood circulation to frostbitten ears, fingers, and toes. Zhang wastes no time and gathers the ingredients for his dumplings, mixing them together to create a flavorful filling. He wraps the filling into delicate dough, folding the dumpling to create tiny packets which he would then steam until tender and juicy. And when he serves his dumplings to the people of the village, they are an instant hit. The warming and flavorful dumplings brought comfort and healing to those suffering in the cold. Did they cure frostbitten ears and fingers? Maybe, but word of Zhang's invention soon spread across the country, and before long, his dumplings became known as jiazi, a beloved dish enjoyed by people all over the country. Over time, jiazi continues to evolve and spread across Asia, taking on new flavors and techniques, but it was only during World War II that it became popular in Japan, acquiring the name Gyoza, which is actually the Japanese pronunciation for jiazi. The Japanese version of the dish often features a thinner and crispier wrapper that is accompanied by a dipping sauce, also which we will be making about right now. For this dip, we have to combine 4 tablespoons of soy sauce to 2 tablespoons of rice vinegar, along with a bit of grated ginger, 1 tablespoon of sesame oil, and finally some sliced scallions to make it pretty. Whisk to combine and adjust the seasoning if needed. And there we have it, a dipalicious sauce. Next and lastly, it's time to cook our dumplings. We are adding a tablespoon of vegetable oil to a non-stick pan on medium heat and arrange our dumplings aesthetically so they look pretty on camera. We want to lightly toast the bottom until it becomes crusty and golden brown, after which we're gonna add a splash of water and close the lid in order to let them steam for about 7 to 8 minutes. Once our wrappers are cooked and the bottom is looking crisp, go ahead and arrange the dumplings neatly on a plate with our homemade sauce. After which, we need to choose our dumplings wisely, dip in the sauce, and chow it down. For me, this checks all the right boxes. It's sweet, it's savory, you can taste the umami, just an explosion of juices and flavors. Definitely give this recipe a try, it's delicious, easy and fast to make, and you can make them in batch, freeze them, and take them out whenever you crave some.